Is sitting the farthest away from me, and I just want to say, as an alumni of the outstanding team that won the NIT last night, Wichita State, I will not show any favoritism toward the fellow who has the same first name as I do and who is wearing the tie of the Wichita State colors. So, Mr. Galligan, please begin.
Thank you. My name's Tom Galligan, and I am the mayor of Jeffersonville, and I'm very proud of Jeffersonville, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished in the last 3 years, plus the previous 8 years I was in office. We were able to build an aquatic center, Little League Park, bring in River Stage, develop Riverside Drive with the restaurants, develop the old railroad yard that was nothing, and now it's got buildings, and Macaulay Nicholas is in it. It's got a lot of economic development in it. 2 hotels, 10th Street widening, Veterans Parkway. There's just a lot of things we've done, and right now we have a Neighborhood Leadership Institute that is award-winning because we won an award from the state. So we're very proud of what we're doing, and we want to continue that. And I think that I can best do that. And we invest in our community, and we look to help our children, because the main thing we need to do is create jobs so our children can stay in Jeffersonville and earn a living and be happy with raising their children in Jeffersonville, because I think it's a great community to do that in, and I think everybody's proud of it. Thank you.
Next speaker will be Mr. Vissing.
You mentioned 2 minutes, but actually it's supposed to be 3, so just so we're clear on that.
2.
It says 2 to 3 on my paper, so I'm prepared for 3. So.
I should warn you that the young lady who's keeping time has a black belt in bunco.
I'm going to go a little different way on mine because, everybody knows who our mayor is, but maybe everybody doesn't know who I am. I want to thank the IUS Democrats and Horizon for inviting us for this debate. I grew up on a large dairy farm operation where I had to learn responsibility at a young age. We milked 100 Holstein dairy cows, and we farmed several hundred acres. My brother Terry still farms for a living. He farms about 1,200 acres in the New Washington, Charlestown, and the Jeffersonville areas. I was in 4-H and junior leaders from the ages of 10 to 18. I'm a 1974 graduate of Providence High School. I raised 4 boys. They are now ages 25 to 34. In 1985, I was employed at Vectron Energy, which was formerly Indiana Gas. I moved to Jeffersonville in 1987. I have been involved in the community. I've coached about 250 games of organized youth sports in baseball and basketball. I'm very proud to say that I coached the team from Jeffersonville, who were 8th graders, and won the first AAU all-school basketball tournament in the state of Indiana for all school. I'm a private pilot, been in one for 12 years. I'm a small business owner with Perfections Coffee and Cafe, downtown Jeffersonville. I'm the current president of the Clark County Council. I served on the county planning and zoning. I'm currently serving on the recycling board and the 4-H extension board. And I'm very fortunate to have traveled. I've been to Europe 5 times, and I've been all over this great country, the United States. I can take a sabbatical from my job for 4 years to do this job, and if I decide not to do it 4 years from now, I can go back with full seniority rights. It's a very good perk. I have a lot of stake in having my family reside in Jeffersonville, as well as being a small business owner in Jeffersonville. Jeffersonville is on the cusp of becoming a major destination for our community and our out-of-town guests with the renovation of the Big 4 Bridge, the completion of the canal project, and the Greenaway. I want to see our tax dollars spent wisely while bringing a return on investment where possible. I enjoy working with the public and feel that I can make a difference in the quality of life in Jeffersonville. I work for a highly regulated company which allows me insight into federal and state regulations. I see the hardships our citizens face every day through my work as a service specialist for Vectron. I have experience balancing budgets with the Clark County Council. Every aspect of my life will help me in the job as mayor. Thank you.
The third speaker is Rob Wise.
It's actually Rob Ways.
Ways, pardon me.
I want to thank the IUS College Democrats for sponsoring this event tonight. It's always a pleasure to return to IUS, where I graduated and met my wife, Susan. I'm proud to say that my record speaks for itself. When I came into office in 2004, we worked to revitalize our neighborhoods that were long neglected with streetlights and sidewalks. We helped attract nearly 3,500 new jobs to Jeffersonville. We saw the opening of Kohl's department store. Along with Kohl's, we developed the 10th and Homans Lane corridor with Orchard Hills development and new Rite Aid store. We revitalized our downtown. We promoted single-family home ownership by developing River Falls Motel and Lounge into condominiums. In our 4 years, we watched as nearly as $24 million was invested in our downtown. We expanded our fire departments by opening 2 new fire stations along with the new city garage. We finished Ohio River Greenway by securing federal funding for walking and bicycling trails along the river's edge. We championed the development and promotion of the river stage. We upgraded and expanded our sewer plant by doubling its capacity so we can grow and attract new businesses. And we secured more than $9 million in grants and donations instead of relying on the tax dollars. In fact, we started a rainy day fund that had more than $3 million when we left office. We left more than $500,000 in reserves for city's health insurance. This is the fiscal stewardship and progress that taxpayers deserve from their mayor. And all of this was done without raising taxes. I repeat, without raising taxes. We live within our means, as any responsible mayor should do. Today, more than ever, Jeffersonville needs a mayor that can bring back progress to our city without constantly raising our taxes and fees. We need a mayor who can relate to businesses, that can bring jobs to our city. We need a mayor who will listen to those who elect him and use their ideas on solving the city's problems. Thank you.
And now we have Teresa Perkins.
Thank you. I am Teresa Butoff Perkins, and thank you to the IU Democrat Student Club. I too attended Indiana University, but I'm a lot older than Rob. I went to the Indiana University when it was downtown Jeffersonville, and then I ended up getting my bachelor's from Bloomington and my 2 master's degrees from Bloomington. But Indiana holds very fond place in my heart, Indiana University. I'd like to also say, before I tell you a little bit about myself, a great patriot passed away in our community, and those that know Reverend Cleveland Williams, his funeral is going on right now, and he is certainly a great Democrat, and I think we would be remiss if we didn't keep that in our memory. He actually got to march with Martin Luther King, and I think that's quite an accomplishment. I grew up in Jeffersonville, but unlike the gentleman to my right, well, there's a couple differences. I'm a woman, but that's pretty obvious, I hope. But the rest of the story is I cannot tell you my accomplishments as a city leader because I've never run for political office. I've never been a politician. I've helped in a lot of races. In fact, I've helped in some races with some people sitting at this table, and I was proud to do that. But I just retired from New Albany-Floyd County Schools, where I worked for 40 years, and my background is in administration and supervision and management, consensus building, and I believe those skills can help us move Jeffersonville forward. I'm not a politician, and I don't have an ego in this, but my heart is in this, and I know I can move Jeffersonville forward. Thank you.
The questioning will now be turned over to the panel of 3 questioners on your left, on my right, Carrie Samley, Adam Dickey, and Nancy Palmquist. And the questionnaire will be in this fashion. They have determined the sequence in which the questions will be answered. The person who gets the question first will have a minute to answer, and then each of the other panelists will have 45 seconds to make any comments that they wish. And we have the timekeeper keeping track of this. Thank you.
To what extent does a mayor's personal style, and here I mean not your taste in clothes, but how you do things, to what extent does your personal style matter, and how would you describe your own personal style?
Where do we start?
Start with you.
Well, I coached basketball, and one of the things I will tell you is that the team plays the personality of the coach, and you want to lead, you want to be very forceful in leading, but you want to have everybody come to the table and bring their best talents. Micromanaging doesn't work in the city. You have to have department heads that do a very good job, and that's what we have. And what I try to do is bring them all together to make sure they stay on task, they stay focused, and they serve the city well, and we move the city forward, because that's what my role is, and that's what I bring to the table with all my department heads. And as you can see, we've accomplished a lot with all these department heads because they make good decisions and they do a great job.
Well, growing up in a farm situation, you learn to grow up, you learn to work hard every day, and also with me working for a utility company, I deal with the public every day. So you always got to put your best foot forward. Whatever you say first is what people are always going to remember. And also, as mentioned, I also coach sports, and you also always have to be seen in the public the same way you were seen in the back in the locker room. You want to show good leadership skills at all times. And as mayor, I think that, I kind of believe just what President Reagan did. He always said you should always be dressed for when you're in the Oval Office, you should always have your best suit on. And I feel like in the public's eye, I will always be presentable and always be respectful.
Say my management style is basically working with people. I've always been a team player, and that's what you need to be whenever you run in the city. There's a lot of people out there that you have to rely on, all your department heads and all those that are out there working on the street. And I started being a team player at a very young age. I was assistant manager at IGA whenever I was 18. So I've always been in some type of management at a young age, and that's really helped me to carry on throughout life, and also to go ahead and run the city as we did 3 years ago. And you have to make sure that you sit down and listen to people's ideas. Believe me, we don't have all the great ideas. A lot of times you all have the best ideas. So you have to sit down and listen to what people have to say.
Point of clarification.
Yes,
Am I to respond to Mayor Galligan, or am I?
if you wish, or you can just make a comment to the same question,
Okay.
if you wish.
All right, I misunderstood. I thought we were going to respond to him. Personal style is something that I'm very easy to it's very easy for me to explain because you're going to see it in everything I do. I'm a consensus builder. I've done it in my previous occupation. I'm a strategic planner. I take things from point A to point Z with steps in between and how you're going to get to point Z. I also manage through the Covey idea of management. For those of you that know what that is, it's empowering people to do what you know that they can do and giving them the opportunity to do it. But as one of my directors said when I retired from New Albany-Floyd County Schools, we always knew that you did that, but we felt like you had your thumb or your finger in our belt. And that's what I do. I keep my finger in the belt of the people that I manage. Thank you.
And Mr. Vissing will get the 45 segment for the next question from Mr. Dickey.
All right. Communicating with the public is crucial for any elected official and their administration. What methods would you utilize to ensure good communication over the next 4 years?
Well, I didn't catch the first part there. Tom was saying something to me. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Communicating with the public is crucial for any elected official and their administration. What methods would you utilize to ensure good communication over the next 4 years?
First of all, I would have meetings with my department leaders probably once a week. I would want all my department leaders to have, for instance, in the street department, so I would want them to have safety meetings once a week. And I would always attend those meetings. I think it's important the mayor attends all the meetings he can in the city. I would also have town hall meetings to communicate to the public, probably once a month meetings. I think that's important as well. Once we become a second-class city, the mayor doesn't have to perform the running the meetings anymore. So, you know, I would sit in on all the city council meetings, but also I would try to have some town hall meetings as well, just to make sure that the public was informed about what was going on in the city.
With communicating with the public, things have changed greatly here in the past few years. So, of course, the internet has been widely used, plus getting on the Facebook. So I know I've been using that quite a bit here lately, and that is just a great tool to actually get out to a vast amount of people. And also what I would do is start back what I had in my first term, which I called Mayor's Night Out in Your Neighborhood. That's where I would go ahead, go out into the public. We'd hit a certain neighborhood with all my department heads, and we would just go on out and just start knocking on doors and just ask them, what type of questions do you have? How can we help you? And we were able to meet up with a lot of citizens, got a lot of good input, and you just have to be out there in the public eye.
I agree. Good communication is vital if we're going to have a good organization. And I see it as two pieces. First of all, communication with our clients, which are the citizens of Jeffersonville. And secondly, communication within your departments. And both, that's already been mentioned. But one thing that I learned very quickly is that sometimes you cannot get all your department heads together when you need to do that, but I still think you need to figure out a way to communicate. And I'm a firm believer in the media, as Rob said, and I did a lot of meetings with Skype. Those of you that know what that is, I'm sure you do, Skype, where we had our virtual meetings, and that way they could continue doing what they needed to do, and still we could have a meeting. The organization that I would look forward to working with is the neighborhood associations. What a great way to communicate through their leadership.
Mr. Kelly?
Well, the way we do it is we put out a newsletter about once quarterly, 4 times a year. When we were talking about the sewers and the long-term control plan and the consent decree, we went on Cablevision, and we have all our council meetings on Cablevision. We have Facebook, we have a web page, and I'm on the radio every Friday talking about issues in Jeffersonville. So we try to communicate a lot of ways. And then we have public meetings. We've had lots of public meetings on the canal. We have public meetings on sidewalks last night. So we try to do a lot of things to communicate with people, and we think we do a fairly good job of it. We could always do better, and we're going to.
And Mr. Ways will get the next question from Mrs. Ponkus.
Hi. I'm on the Central Committee in Clark County, and I just want to say I'm really pleased to have really 4 great candidates to choose from. Not all years are like that, and so I'm really pleased. And I want to thank the audience. You have been extremely respectful and polite and quiet, and it is rare, and I applaud you for that. Thank you very much. My question is, we already know the Republican candidate. So coming from the Central Committee point of view, what makes you the most electable of our candidates for the fall election?
Well, it's my past experience as being mayor. I'm the only candidate can actually say that I've lowered taxes 14% while I was in office. We brought in over 3,500 jobs, a lot of good paying jobs. We worked well with being bipartisan, working well with the governor's office. in order to get funds to help us actually open up a tech park. And with the technology park, we were able to get $5 million. With that, we brought in MedVenture, we brought in Key Electronics, and we are also able to keep Heartland Payment Systems here in Jeffersonville. So with that, keeping taxes low, bringing in jobs.
I agree, Nancy. We will have a formidable candidate in the fall in the Republican side, and he's here tonight with us. And I'm a firm believer in data and statistics, and I've only got a few seconds to share this with you, but my demographics are very good for the fall. If you're a Democrat and you want to win the election, I'm a woman. Believe it or not, that's good for leadership right now. Secondly, I'm not an incumbent. I hate to say it, but the incumbents didn't do well in the last election. So I'm glad to put my hat in the ring and see what can happen.
Well, I think I'm the best candidate because the last election was the last election. This election is going to be on what you can do for the community, and we're fiscally responsible in Jeffersonville. We've done a very good job of managing our money, unlike the county where they are bankrupt just about. If they're not already, they're laying people off and they're doing things just to cut to get by. We're not doing that. We're leading the way in the state because a lot of people are looking at Jeffersonville because we do things on the cutting edge and we lead by example. And we've brought in the last 5 months over about $10.5 million in grants for the Big Four Bridge and for the flooded houses in downtown Jefferson.
I have served, I'm in my third year of the Clark County Council. I've been elected president for this year. We've had some tough times in the county this year, if you've been paying attention, and it's been tough. And I've got experience with that. Also, I work for a highly regulated utility company. We deal with the regulations every day. We have to follow those rules. And also, I'm a small business owner downtown, so I feel like that makes me a well-rounded candidate for this office.
Mrs. Bodorf, Perkins will get the next question from Mr. Stemley.
The Ohio River Bridges project is obviously an important project for Jeffersonville. So where do you stand on the core issue of the bridges as well as the issue of tolls?
Well, the first bridge that needs to be built is the East End Bridge. And with that, I mean, I could stop there, but I won't. If we're going to have a bridge in downtown, I am firmly against tolls. It could have a debilitating effect on our economy. After all, we've just convinced the people in Louisville that it's okay to cross the bridge and come over and visit us, and you don't need a visa to return. So I think that putting tolls on the bridge, the downtown bridge, would be devastating. The bridge in the East End is so important to think about all of the folks who have to drive all the way down to Jeffersonville to cross to get into Louisville. And our city has grown, as you well know, with the annexation. The East End Bridge is just very important.
The East End Bridge is very, very important, and we need it desperately. We do not need a toll on the downtown bridge, but we need the East End Bridge. And the one thing we need to not do is we need to pay for our share of the bridge. And if there's a toll, it needs to be put on Spaghetti Junction, and the people on the Kentucky side pay for Spaghetti Junction because we don't need to be paying for it. We're gonna have a significant burden on our taxpayers on this side just by paying a toll to get across the bridge if they put it on. Downtown doesn't need to have a toll. The East End can have a toll because we need to get the bridges, because if we don't, we'll starve in economic development.
I spoke about 6 months ago to the No to Tolls group here at the Buckheads, and my stand on that is the Southern Indiana drivers will be most affected by tolls. There's more of us that drive over there every day to work than there are that come over here. I don't think it's fair that we should have to pay for those bridges by tolls. I will accept having to have a toll on the new East End Bridge, and I think the East End Bridge should be built first, but I disagree with having tolls on bridges we've already paid for.
Well, the citizens of Jeffersonville really can't afford another fee. We've already had our taxes go up 30% in the past 3 years. Our sewer rates have gone up 200%. So we definitely don't need another fee based on the citizens of Jeffersonville. I grant you, we definitely do need the East End Bridge. The East End Bridge is going to enhance our economy tremendously. It was kind of funny how this whole thing kind of worked out, where for, I don't know, 4 or 5, well, probably 10 years, it was basically, we can't change the plan at all. And then just all of a sudden, a few months ago, the governors went in, they changed the plan, saved $500 million. So I think we just need to look at making some other changes, make it affordable.
Next question for Mr. Galligan from Mr. Dickey.
Currently, state and federal leaders are calling for severe budget cuts to grants and other funding programs that routinely are used to fund city departments and projects. If, as a result of these cuts and other limitations on city revenues, you are forced to make budget cuts, what programs would you cut first and why?
Well, first of all, if we manage our money correctly and we reinvest in our community like I've been doing, we will not feel the pain. And if you get dependent upon federal grants to run your government, you are in the hole and you can't get out. We manage without putting that in the general fund where we have salaries and everything on it. We manage with the revenue we generate, and we don't see that as being a problem of not getting earmarks or not getting a grant. If we don't get a grant, we'll just work around it. But we do not put that in where it's in our operating fund that we rely on every year.
I heard some bad news today that the circuit breaker is going to affect Jeffersonville at 1.8 million and the county government 500,000. So we're going to have to make some cuts in the really quick. I think I probably would consider going across the board on the cuts, but there's, as a mayor, you have different things that you can cut rather than, say, in the county. For instance, you have parks. You'd probably scale back the parks first. Street lights could be cut back, maybe half the street lights. It'd be a bad situation, but the mayor's job is to cut wasteful spending, and maybe there's some areas that could be in the city could be we could have some savings and wasteful spending, so we would look at that as well.
While I was in office, we weren't relying on grants. So we looked at grants as basically winning the lottery. So we found out that that was a great thing. So at least we're in a position where I don't believe the grants, if they get cut, is going to hurt us as much as other communities.
Probably 80% or 85% of the city budget is in personnel costs. And having worked with New Albany-Foley County Schools and had to cut people, that's the last place I want to go. That will be the last place I will go, because that means services to the citizens. But one of the things I think we have to look at, and what I did as assistant superintendent in New Albany, is I looked at where we were spending our money and our indebtedness. I looked at the debt reporting form for Jeffersonville, and in 2008, 9, and 10, we have entered into $48 million in debt. We do pay our bills, but we still have lots of debt. And one of the things that I will look at very carefully, I'll sharpen my pencil, is before we buy something or go into another project, such as buying new software or River Stage or whatever it might be, I will look at the impact it would have on our funds.
Next question from Mrs. Palmquist for Mr. Vissy.
Given the highly partisan debates that are possible, both within our party and with various constituent groups, what plans, and I'd like you to be specific, do you have for actually getting things done with the city council, county officials, state officials, federal officials, as well as working with various factions within the community that would be important to actual getting things done.
I'm next.
I think that the mayor's office should work hand in hand with the city council. I would hope that partisanship doesn't get involved in that. Sometimes it does. It seems like that one side, once they try to say they're more fiscally sound than the other, I don't think that's true when you're talking about local government. I think local government's a lot different than federal government. Of course, we can't manufacture dollars like the federal government can. We have to balance our budget. So I would work hand in hand with the city council to make sure I was able to get things done as efficiently as possible.
You have to cross party lines. As I said before, you got to work with everybody because it's not working solely on a Democrat ticket or a Republican ticket. It's all about the citizens of Jeffersonville and what's the best you can do for them. So you have to make sure that you go up to the state office. If you don't have a good relationship with the governor, up with the state officials, it's tough to get money to come down to Jeffersonville.
I clearly understand the difference between the legislative branch and the executive branch of government. The mayor is the executive branch, the legislative branch is your city council. And I think when you keep that on the table and everybody understands that, I think it makes for a better cohesive relationship. My style of doing business is communicating and also getting the right people at the table. And I think your question specifically is how would we get that done? Well, I think you have to be out there and very open and very receiving. You have to be, people have to know that you're there to listen and to hear their views. And I'm very good at networking. I've had to do that for 40 years, and I can do that very well. Thank you.
I'm on the solid waste board, and I work with Clarksville on the Greenway and Veterans Parkway. I've worked with the governor and the lieutenant governor because we got $11 million in grants in the last 5 months. So we work very well with people. I'm on the executive board of IACT. And the last thing I'll tell you is I have an excellent relationship with the city council, and they're mixed. They're Republican and Democrat, but they have one goal in mind, and that is to move Jeff forward and create jobs and make it a better place to live. And anybody that has that idea or that reason for being in office, I can work with without any problem at all. And I've proven it over the last 3 years.
Mr. Dickey, question to
Mr. Stedman.
Mr. Ways. Carrie, I'm sorry.
Some voters might describe the canal project as a referendum on the current administration. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, with the canal project itself, as you know, I'm the only one that's actually voiced my opinion to say I'm not in favor of the canal. Back in 1840, the state of Indiana actually went bankrupt. You know why? Because of building canals. And right now, it seems like we're getting very difficult trying to figure out what the cost of the canal is going to be. Started off at $36 million, now it's $144 million. And then for doing the pipes underground, started off around $37 million. Now they're saying it's over $200 million. I tell you, what really concerns me is the city themselves sent a document up to IDM, the long-term control plan, and says that we can do the canal, we can do the pipe option for $77 million. So I got a big concern about this.
I think the question was, will it be a referendum on Mayor Galligan's term in office? I think that has to be part of his, how people will judge his leadership. It's a huge project. and it has to be part of whether or not, how they judge him. But for me, the canal has two pieces, clearly two pieces. One, an EPA mandate that we must solve, and the canal, which is an economic development opportunity. They do not necessarily have to go hand in hand. We must do this. There are other ways to solve that besides the canal. The canal does not have to be part of it. And then the economic piece with the canal, which sounds exciting, but we have to decide whether or not we can afford that.
I hope it is a referendum, because it'll state which direction this community wants to go in. If we want to move forward and we want to attack problems and be resourceful at it, or if we just want to stay at the status quo. I don't want to stay there. I want Jeff to be all it can be, and to do that, we have to do things in a positive way. The canal is the cheapest alternative. The thing about it, you're going to invest the money in a pipe, and you're never going to get any return on it except when it rains. When you put a canal in, you're going to get return on it every day, and it's going to help pay for it, and it's going to lessen the burden on the ratepayers and the sewers, because it is a positive thing for our community. It goes hand in hand with the Big Four Bridge, and without it, we'll just be another community. With it, we will be the community to go to.
I think it will be a referendum on whether the current administration is reelected, mostly because people don't understand it. I have been to as many of the meetings about this as anybody. I think I understand it, and with me having experience in utilities and construction, I understand about how much will be all the destruction that's going to take place in digging up all these pipes and adding pipes. And if you're going to tear up downtown and put a pipe in on every street, why not go on and make some economic benefit out of it? I think that the canal is the way to go, and it's going to be a good tie-in to the Big Four Bridge and to the Greenaway. I definitely support it.
Mr. Dickey, you have the next question for Mrs. Spotter Perkins.
State Rep.